Who am I speaking to?
Roy Francis Cape.
The Cape. This is a project that we're doing here in Toronto, and you you came to Toronto and dominate the scene in the entertainment scene with your band. And
I did.
could you remember when you first came to Toronto?
All right, in '94.
And the purpose of the visit?
I came there with Elwood to do a show with Black Starlet. Some things I'm going to remember, and some things I wouldn't. But we could check with Jamesy and them. So we did that, and well, I played in a spectacular Calypso tent from 1979 for about 12 years.
Okay.
Then I went to Kiss Kitty Caravan, which was a young thing with Grant and Kindred and Youth and them, but I mixed it with Super Blue and Harlan and Cardinal. And then I got Marvin and Nigel Lewis.
Is that the moving to the right, moving to the left?
Yeah. So we said 94, 95. I came, I did lots of work with Elwood James. Stadium, the stadium's going in Toronto. Lamport Stadium. I play dances there, basic dance.
Okay, but if I remember correctly, we'll get to the boat ride, but you at one time were the official band for the Caribana committee to launch the opening of Caribana.
Well, I wouldn't say the band, but where my purpose was needed. For instance, like, they wanted a band to play for the Californians. They would hire me to play dance music and also maybe to back up for the artists and them, which is what we did on the island many times then.
And that Center Island, that Chinpin kick?
Yeah. Well, Chinpin picnic was one thing, but the island was something else. That we go on a little boat over to the island and we jammed it, but picnic was a picnic in Toronto. A beautiful picnic, because up to now, Jai still remind me of it. Picnic. We did, well, I'm running fast. We did 95, and by 96 we had moving to the left. I used to go to the Bamboo and sit ram out and ask myself if that would ever happen. And in Pakis and lots of places, Ghetto Place and different people who had places at the time. Them fellas and them supposed to get names.
So
because they was with me all the time then.
let's talk about Cutties. Were you hired or were you friends with Frank Cuthbert?
Well, that is Mr. Curtis himself, right?
Yes.
All right. We and myself, we had a very gentleman arrangement with each other. So he would give me a percentage of the dough. And one or two people I had worked that way at the Bamboo. The dough was our own. And we had one or two little things like that because we ourselves to Toronto.
Accommodation, how was the accommodation situation?
All right. We did spend some time, well, the university, we stay downtown in a big university. I can't remember the name.
Ryerson?
I stayed at Ryerson, but they have a big hotel down there. We also stayed there already. Harbourfront, which is the open air by the thing, place there open by the sea.
Yes.
Harbourfront. Every year I used to do Harbourfront, and we used to have a beautiful audience, so it was always break down there. There's so much that happened. I work for wheelchair at the government. We some sell out and smash up fit inside the day there. I work so many places.
Did you ever work at Ontario Place?
Many times.
Okay. So before we come on the road, what about the boat rides? Because the boat rides preempt the Caribana parade. So
I love the boat ride. Well, we used to play for regulars. We used to play for Tranquility. We used to play for Trophy and maybe all the major promoters who used to have boat rides. We used to play for it.
So what was your length of stay? You come for the season. What was the average length of stay? A month?
About a month we used to.
And how did that work for you in terms of everything in terms of business wise?
Well, it kept us occupied for about 6 weeks. You know, we played a lot of thing for Jamal.
That's Jamal Magor, right?
Yeah, Jamal, we played it for Jamal. Ghetto. So many people. Well, Elwood, as you know, Elwood was
Yeah. So
in big promotion then.
as far as what bands did you represent, play the music for on the road? Could you recall?
Well, I know I played for the Chinese man, but I can't remember his name at all. But you could always get a...
Yeah. So he's the only one you played for?
I worked for him, and then I worked for one or two other at the very beginning where we had so much bloody problem. I could remember we were playing for the bank band, the bank band.
Ye-
When we reached down there, everybody's truck was there, and our truck wasn't there. So it gave a lot of heartbreak. I only killed about 20 people that morning by my motor. And when we eventually get it, it was pressure on the engineers because everything going wrong the road and the stretch already. And when we didn't make it, and people see me, they said, they make it, look, they coming. They didn't expect us to make it then. All in all, at this point, outside of Trinidad, when I could talk, man, I had all the fest that had spectacular. I used to come there. I used to play for Spectacular with Byron and Spectacular and whoever Trinidad band there.
Okay.
First year I went there, Ellswood took me to Canada. And after that, I brought myself up for all the years until I had to stop there.
But I want to ask you this. You just mentioned Byron Lee. Now I have Byron Lee, God rest his soul, equivalent as far as because when I was coming to Trinidad, Byron Lee, although he was a Jamaican-based band, was really kind of making things happen at the Carnival in Trinidad. How you match up because I have you guys as the unique bands, unique. We're not talking about who good, who better and stuff. Unique.
We are from Trinidad and Tobago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And things like that. Plus, Jamaican music, I still have to say, still close to North American music. It's the slower music, and they get total support from the community. Total. But I can tell you about bands. There was one band named Carlos Malcolm. It's one of the greatest bands I ever heard from Jamaica.
Yeah.
I worked with a band in New York named Hugh Hendrix and the Buccaneers, so that was like a clone Byron Lee. I worked with the Blues Busters, but a big name in the 60s in New York. But our music, it's a little more pace. Jamaican music is a laid back.
So how, if you look at your whole Toronto experience, how would you wrap up your Toronto experience in terms of your career as a musician?
My whole life, I would have to say that is the most welcoming place that I have ever been to. And I tell you before, I brought the band to Toronto for 10 years on my own, paying for the airline and paying for accommodation. I used to go by the food mart. When I pay them, they don't ask me, where is the party tonight? Because we were still in the university and we had like 4 townhouses. And X amount of people in the townhouse, so we had switched to everything in the basement. And we used to cook there. When I go to the grocery, I used to, if I want to buy ketchup, I buy 4 bottles of ketchup. If I buy onions, then it's 4 bags of onion then.
Yeah.
But we inside then, we were really going out because we were far from serious activity then.
Yes.
I had a lovely time in Toronto because it's the only place that we had stayed so long then.
So, how you compare it to New York? How you compare it to New York?
The time that we had in Canada, we go for a weekend. We go Miami for 2 weekends and then come back home. But in Toronto, we used to spend a month, 6 weeks. We stay in the university. So we are not going in a regular hotel then.
Yeah.
Because the rates in the university was, more economically strong for what we was earning then.
Yeah.
So playing cutties and all the clubs that was around at that time, they couldn't pay more than so much then. I did a lot of work for Honest Ed.
Let's hear about that.
A lot of work all by the store. And they had a cinema, a lovely cinema. They invited us, we went there and we really enjoyed ourselves there. And when the Caribana come in, he used to ask us to come then.
So you met him personally and interact with him personally?
Personally. He used to come and call me Roy then. He took us for lunch, nice place, maybe in one of his own place and all. Yeah. Toronto to me was like a home. When we were there, people used to be very happy for we there for a good while then.
Yeah. So that means if you compare it like a home, that means the friendships you built over the years.
Many friendships. Krupi and myself grew up in the same house together. But all Ray and
Ray as in Stalin?
huh?
Stalin Ray?
Yeah, Ray, Floyd, Padlad and Auntie.
Okay. So you had people having your back.
never live in a jam then. In Toronto, this whole game maybe for me all kind of 20 years ago. After Trinidad and Carnival, I had, look at Toronto. It was organized. They had big bands, recognized people, mass makers. But when I Toronto, really and truly a homie boy, I played on the boat ride. The little jam used to be really nice then. And we used to do quite a few, the regulars, and I do big shows with James then.
Mm-hmm.
James is the big one. In all the big halls downtown. So you can say Elwood has taken it from small place and carried it to big, prestigious place. If we were doing this in writing, we'd have had time to converse, and a lot of things that have come back to my memory. Tell you the truth, right? This happened to me in October last year. I come from classes, and I walk in, being absent, I didn't do it, and I walk in a hole. And when my partner Abu was with me, who was an entertainer, I raised the foot, I put the foot dead. So they had to lift me up bodily, and an ambulance came to Trinidad and Tobago Hospital. But after a while, I didn't even know any medication where I was hallucinating as myself coming on a train from Washington to New York, and I had no passport or nothing. I started studying about immigration or why.
Well, hopefully you end up in Toronto.
Well, now boy, I swear it have another Sunny Grandi. I was hallucinating. I spent 8 days in the hospital. I had surgery on my left hip bone. It was. But it is being very kind to me.
But
and I was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2014. Last time I traveled, I had just came back and came out of and we came to play for the Panam something they had.
Pan Am Games.
Yeah, they brought us up here and we played downtown. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. I was 49.6. Anybody know what prostate cancer is? I know. I. Asian. And I'm still taking treatment. But right now, we have to get okay from the Ministry of Health. A little wayward in taking the vaccination. And they can't send people who vaccinated by people who ain't vaccinated.
Right.
So, where we go in, it's a community center that we have the whole facility, the yard and the parking and all like that. So we use the marching band drums outside in the yard and the horns on various levels of the building. I don't want to guess on what the government have to do. For everything right now, you could talk to Jamal.
Uh-huh.
You could talk to Dr. J.
Yeah. All right. So you take care and have a good night.
All right, brother. Much love, man.
All right. Take care.